Welcome to the Broken Graciously podcast, where we challenge the culture of brokenness by exchanging beauty for ashes holistically, with candid conversations, transparency, and practical tips. I'm your host, Tanisha B. Lester, lovingly known as Coach T. I'm a Master Certified Life and Business Coach, Certified Christian Coach, Certified Pastoral Counselor, and published author. I look forward to engaging with you in the comments as well as on IG. Follow me on IG at Tanisha B. Lester with the number 1. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Broken Graciously. So at this point, this is like episode 7, and we're just cruising right along. So welcome to Broken Graciously, where we challenge the culture of brokenness holistically with transparent conversations, candidness, and practical tips. So today, just like we've been doing all season long, we have another guest in with us, and we have Dr. Frances Moody in the room. Let me tell you a little bit about her. So Dr. Moody is the owner and head doctor at Living Water Chiropractic, located in Blythewood, South Carolina. It's a clinic at which she is the head doctor again, and she enjoys serving her community through subluxation-based chiropractic care. While delivering this care, Dr. Moody places a strong emphasis on patient education. Dr. Moody fully believes that the power that made the body heals the body, and that healing comes from above, down, inside, and out. That's powerful right there. Dr. Moody has advanced training in pediatrics and prenatal care. Dr. Moody resides in Blythewood, South Carolina, with her husband and 3 children. Welcome, Dr. Moody, for coming in and gracing us with your room.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm always, as you read in my bio, I'm always really big on patient education. And I've noticed a lot, especially in our culture and I guess the American culture, people do not know what chiropractic is.
No.
They think it's about the pops and the clicks and there's a new TLC show actually that follows a chiropractor, and I think it's called what is it called? A crack addiction or the crack addiction or whatever. Something like that. I
checked it out once and I didn't watch the full episode, so I don't remember the title of it, but yeah, I saw
Crack
it
Addicts.
the other
That's
day.
what it's called. It's called Crack Addicts.
Yep. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. And it's a lot of people they truly have no idea. And so I really base my care, day one, you come in, we're doing the exam, I'm showing you why you need this, right? But then I'm teaching you more importantly. And so a lot of people, they're like, oh yeah, crack my spine like like a glow stick. That's a famous saying. And yeah, I'm very good at that, but that's not what I'm doing. So patient education is huge for me. And I believe that everybody deserves to live their best life. And their best life is their most God-given life and God. So we're gonna get into that. What did you have to say? You asked me your questions because I can go on and on and on. We'll be here all day.
So we've been talking about health throughout this season, and we've talked about various aspects of health. And I've had women come in the room who are either experts in their field or they've experienced some sort of health challenge themselves, and to see how they were able to shift what they were going through into, from being broken to being broken graciously. So when I was praying about who to bring on, God gave me your name as well as everybody else's name. And it was like, okay, she does chiropractic care. Now, what I know is that most people, number one, don't believe chiropractors are real doctors. So it's like, okay, let's bust some myths and give some truth and line everything up so that people understand exactly what it is, why it's needed, And that
Mhm.
is a real thing. Like, it's not just some fluke. Like, she went to medical school just like everybody else, spent that good money with all of those things to have this title, but not just a title. It's a title that's something that she believes in. So first, let's bust up the myths about
Okay.
what chiropractic care is and that you are a real doctor.
So first, I will tell you, a lot of people don't know that I actually have a really strong medical education. So people don't know there was a paradigm shift. So I got to the lab. I'll tell you, I was a research microbiologist first. So, those that say, oh, it's not a real science, but initially, my first career was as a scientist in pathology in a lab, in a hospital lab. So I have a very strong medical background. I made drugs, I made vaccines. So, hey, plot twist, the chiropractor who made vaccines. So
Right.
I will tell you that the training that I did for chiropractic much surpassed my training that I had for my medical background. And a lot of people don't know that. It's much more hours in the actual, the basic sciences. So anatomy, I spent a lot more time in the anatomy lab with the cadavers in chiropractic school than I did before. So a
Okay.
lot of people don't know that. My and it's a 4-year program, 3.5 if you're good. So I took 3.5 for that program. That's after your bachelor's, that's after anything else. I told you I have lots of additional medical training.
Right.
So that there was just a paradigm shift. I found myself, I'll give you my history. I found myself in the lab and I'm coordinating with other doctors and we're talking about patients and I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys, they really, a first year doctor, they don't really know what they're doing. So I'm like, why do you not know what lab tests you should be ordering? Why are you calling me? My job is very different in pathology, in research, in a lab. So it's fine. But I'm noticing something. I went from there to pathology lab because I like people and I realized that wasn't going to work for me long term. So I said, let me go over to the ER. Let me see if that's my fit, right? I'm in the part of my career where I'm just like, okay, I did the research micro. I've done other things. I'm now in this pathology lab. Let's see where I fit. It's not here because I like people too much. And this is just looking at tubes and aging and staging cancers and, doing the just the very basic medical lab stuff. So I went over to the ER and I followed this doc. He's like one of the hottest docs in Colombia. He's in everything. And he just happens to be an ER doc. So he told me about the lifestyle. And I'm like, great, I can work 14 days out of a month. Let's do that.
Okay.
So I get there and there's a 17-year-old boy. So remember, you only work 14 days out of the month when you're in ER, right?
Okay.
17-year-old boy, he comes in, he's about 350 pounds. I'm watching his mom bring him Bojangles. And he was there the first time I was there. He was there the second time I was there. By the fourth time, and he had been in there every night that I was in there, I became concerned.
Right.
And so I talked, and they look like me. So I was hugely, largely concerned. I'm like, wait, so I talked to the doc. I'm like, talk to the attending. I'm like, hey, this doesn't are we educating them because they're coming to the emergency room? Because first of all, that's not emergency care. They're
Right.
coming because he has a high blood pressure. He's having all these issues, high cholesterol, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then his mom is bringing him Bojangles, and are we supposed to be educating them? And he's like, no, we just get him to baseline and we send him home. And we send him out, and I'm just like, wait, there's something wrong with that.
Right.
And then I realized that all of the patients that were coming in the they call it the red section of the emergency room, they were all, overweight and at risk for metabolic disorder. And, with metabolic disorder comes your diabetes and your high cholesterol. And no one was educating them. No one educated them at all. And the doctor, he just moved through. So, he was so used, that was a way of life for him. I'm like, this is not, I don't fit here either.
Right.
So then I found chiropractic. And I learned the philosophy of it. The philosophy truly is that the body the power that made the body heals the body. And you know how I can prove that to you. If I took a knife and cut my arm right there, I do not have to tell my arm, hey, come on, platelets, make the scab. It does it by itself. Right. And that is the proof. People think that when you break a bone, that you put a cast on and the cast heals the bone. That's not true. Those are osteoclasts and osteoblasts. That cast is just stabilizing so you don't go and further break it or injure yourself even more. But people have no idea what their body is capable of. And it's not because you or I made it. And it's not because you or I did it. It's because, God made us perfect. He literally made us to self-heal. That's why we have things like white blood cells. And that's why we have those things. Right. So to stay away from things so scientific, so that I don't lose my patients. They're like, wait, what is she talking about? And make it very easy. Everybody has a house, right? You either own it or rent it. In that house is a breaker box, right? Mm-hmm. The breaker box, if you flip the switch, they say, what did they say? They say trip the breaker box. Yep. If you trip the breaker box and you flip the switch that goes to the bathroom, what are the people in the bathroom going to have? No hard time going because they're in the dark, right? They're in the dark, so they're going to have a hard time going. Your spine is that breaker box. Okay. Off of your spinal cord are nerves that go to everywhere, just like that breaker box sends energy everywhere in the house. Mm-hmm. Well, those nerves send energy everywhere inside of your body. So it's just like you're just turning on energy, right? So if that spine is aligned and if everything's good, you got all of the energy flowing smoothly through your house. The problem is when you have a trip in the breaker box. You might have a trip up in the thoracic section and you're wondering why you can't breathe and your baby has asthma and allergies and it's so bad and I walk by and I just tripped the breaker box the other way and I'm like, oh my gosh, you made my kid breathe. I've had a woman tell me that I got her pregnant. Ma'am, I'm a female. I can't get anyone pregnant. But guess what? Guess where one of those nerves go off of that spine? To your reproductive system. Right. If that switch was the wrong way, okay, and you're wondering, you're trying and you're wondering why you can't get pregnant. You come to me and a cycle later, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. I didn't get you pregnant. Your body got you pregnant. I just simply remove the interference and I make it very simple and I make it easy. And I like to educate people on why this is a lifestyle. This is not a one click, bam, pop, and you're done. You're going to feel amazing. I'm grateful, to God for having that opportunity, but that's just your body doing the work. Right. Most chiropractors, go ahead. Go ahead. Most chiropractors on their wall, they have this sign. It says, expect miracles. And it's in that very Star Wars, the Star Wars words when they roll the screen. It's a very chiropractic thing. It says, expect miracles, right? And they have it all over their walls. So I was telling my coach the other day, my business coach, I was telling her, I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to get one that says expectation is invitation. And I seen that actually at a church, and it was right over the when you walked into the sanctuary. And I said, you know what? I'm taking that. Mine is going to say expectation is invitation. Because if I walk in that office with the expectation, I'm just inviting God to come in and do the rest. And that's how I walk in every day as the provider.
That's good. So when we talk about interferences, I know what my interferences are. I don't know about anybody else. So I literally have bulging disc in my neck and in my spine. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I know those are some interferences. Yeah. So when we talk about that, what are some common interferences that everyday Jane, Joe, Billy, Bobby doesn't necessarily associate as an interference? Mm-hmm. That may not be really big. It can be something small, but that you come across that people don't necessarily think about.
So we're going to start from birth, right? Let me tell you, so fun fact, we're doing it all wrong here in the United States. If you notice on my posts, I post about how I had my first baby. I had my first girl at a hospital, regular, but because, we follow each other. I had my last two at home on my bathroom floor, literally on the side of the tub.
Okay.
In America, we are like a world power, right? But we have the highest infant mortality, one of the highest in the world. And
Especially in our
that's not
community.
normal. Especially people that look like you and I.
Yes.
So what we're doing, I'll try to keep this as not scientific as possible so that I don't lose anybody. But that first, what they call interference or what they call subluxation, that first one happens typically at birth. You got to understand, when we go to have our baby, so this is what the bone at the bottom of your spine looks like. They call it the sacrum, right? So the sacrum just hangs out here and walking, it hangs just like this. When you put me on my back, the sacrum goes like this because it's leaning on the bed, right? There's a bed under here, right? So it pushes the sacrum like this. Right. Exactly. So this is how it is usual, right? I'm trying to make, yep, there we go. And so the baby's head is right here where my finger is. This is where the baby's head is, right? Okay. If you put this on the back and you go like this, what did I do to the door that's supposed to be open to let the baby come out?
It's already narrowed. I mean, it's a wide space, but yeah, exactly. You kind of close it off.
And then I close the door. If I lay you on the back, I put the sacrum, they call it apex up, apex into, and I close the door. How do we have our babies? Laying on our back.
Well, I didn't. I had mine in the air.
Yeah. So the norm in America, like, so we're pushing, but we're pushing again. Like, does that make sense? Yeah. But that is America's norm. So in third world countries, they'll have trees and they call them laboring trees. And they'll have the women, they stand outside on the laboring tree and they have their hand, they're holding themselves up by the tree and they're rocking and they're swaying their hips and they're opening the passageway for this baby to come out. Us in America, we close the passage. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense at all, but that's our norm. So that first subluxation.
Back in the day, that you know, back in slavery time, they had them babies in the field, clean them off and toss them on their backs. But they were standing or in a squatted position, but they were still upright. So that makes total sense.
Exactly. And nowadays we've made birth an emergency. Like you said, they were in the field. What changed between now and then? But that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother podcast.
The so-called advancement.
Exactly. Are we really advancing if we're closing a door and trying to force something out? So that's the first subluxation, or I guess what would we say? The first interference in the spine, right? So when you come out, you got the doctor, they're torquing the neck, and that's how they're trained. So they're not doing anything that they're not trained to do. They're torquing that neck. What's in the neck? You got those bones, right? Mm-hmm. That's why a lot of times my midwife, she'll call me, hey, do you want to adjust the brand new baby? Yes, we adjust newborns. I adjust day olds. I adjust hour olds. Because guess what? If mom's pelvis wasn't aligned because she wasn't seeing a good chiropractor, and not even that, so things happen, right? Life happens. We live life through our spine. If mom's pelvis wasn't aligned and that midwife has to turn that baby, even the slightest bit, guess what's turning also in there? That bone that's supposed to be straight. And then when baby can't poop or pee or, all the baby screaming, they call in. So it's so when we talk about subluxation or interference, normal human everyday, like you said, Tom, Dick, Jerry, Sarah, it's three things. Trauma, so like blunt trauma, think falling, slips and falls. Toxins, the things that we eat, people don't really realize that that's a toxin as well. The things that we inject ourselves with, the air, pollutants, just, look at the earth now and the earth 50 years ago is very different, less trees. So toxics, traumas, and what's the third one? The 3 T's, thoughts. People don't understand that. That that stinking thinking, what does stress do but bind you? When you're stressed, can you go to the bathroom easily? Your body literally takes that on, and those bones, I didn't bring my spine. I should have brought my spine, but I wanted to show you, give you a little pictorial of, those things bind you. And when you're bound, that stress, it torques the spine. And it is ever so, you can't see it. You wouldn't be able to feel it, but it's just, how you have that you're introducing that little poison by little tiny little increments. That's how it is. It's like a poison that you introduce ever so small and ever so, you can't really see it until it's too late.
Right.
So toxins, traumas, and thoughts, they call those the three main causes of subluxations.
Okay.
You can get them anyway like that.
So you hit on a trigger word because a lot of the people I deal with trauma. Mm-hmm. And I always say trauma is not just one note. So trauma can be the greatest thing, it can be the smallest of things. So for you to hit on trauma in that aspect, that just leads me to another thought of how the major traumas, not just blunt force trauma, the traumas of sexual abuse and molestation, the traumas of divorce, the traumas of stress, the traumas of PTSS, because it's no longer PTSD anymore. Those different traumas, how all of that as well can lead to an interference where you would need that extra help or that adjustment in subluxation. So that was pretty good. I like that.
Oh, absolutely. I have to. So one of my patients, I'll tell you about her really quick. She's, and I'm going to share some photos on social media. She came. Well, I actually found her. She's actually a neighbor of my mother-in-law's, where I drop my kids every morning. So I went to go pick my kids up at night, and I just got out of work. And this baby is my son's age, so she's 7 months old, and her family member was holding her in her arms for like this, right? And so I'm just thinking, oh, that's because that's how she's holding her. But then she called me. She's like, hey, Melinda. I'm like, hey, you know. And she turns, and the baby's arms are still like this. And so I'm looking at her, and I'm talking to the girl, and she's talking. I promise you, I didn't hear anything she was saying. I was dead focused on seeing whether baby was ever going to come out of this.
Right.
So she didn't. So I said, hey, did the pediatrician tell you anything about that? And they said, no, we just thought it was kind of funny. We just said, oh, insert baby's name is just stressed. Like, ha, ha, ha. She came here stressed, right?
Right.
And so baby's stuck like this. So I look at it and I push it and it goes back and it comes right. And I try to bring it forward and it comes in. I'm just like, that's not normal. So I'm like, I don't like that. My son they're actually born on the same day, her and my son. My son, he's up, he's crawling and he's moving. Well, to crawl, you got to have your arms like this, right?
Right.
She's not crawling because if you put her on her stomach, she's like this.
Okay.
So, like you said, trauma, I also got a little history, and I learned, life hasn't been that easy for her, right? Mom and dad had, it's going through a bit of a hard time, and, they're young. So just people don't understand the effects of that. Even babies, they're picking it up, right? Like, right. If we look, if me and my husband don't have anywhere to stay, guess what my infant's gonna do? I'm gonna pick that up, and it might look like this.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So let me just, for those that are listening via audio and aren't seeing the video on YouTube, you can watch the video of this on YouTube. But what she's referring to is the baby's arms are bent and her fists are literally by her, like on parallel to each ear.
So I named her the winged baby so that everybody can understand. Yeah, because she literally had wings, right?
Right.
And mom and dad are young, but let me tell you, mom and dad were both so fierce about her treatment. They didn't know. Like I said, they didn't know. Then they shouldn't have known because they're not providers. But they've shown up every appointment. I told them, hey, I need to see her like 2 times a week, 3 times a week if I bring her. And so I was talking to my coach the other day. It's so funny. This just happened this week. Talking to my coach the other day, I said, look, I've been adjusting that baby, like, and doing all the things. Like I told her, I said, I've been doing all I know how to do, right? I just adjust his spine. It's no magic or, and I said, I've been doing everything and I don't know what else to do. Like, don't you know Mom walked in with baby girl, and baby girl was holding mom. That has never been a thing.
Okay.
She was holding her like as a normal, I guess, 7-month-old would kind of I guess, hug mom, as you know, as you're being held, the baby kind of hugs and leans into mom. She's never done that before. She's always been out here, or what they call stuck in extension. Her arms are stuck in extension. So to see her flexed and leaning into mom, and her face relaxed, her hands were not bunched, like, you know, her fists were not clenched.
Right.
I was just like, would you look at God? And that's all I could say. Like, you know, mom's like, oh, I noticed, like, she, you know, she's touching me and my husband more, like she's leaning into us more. Her fiance, they're like, oh, she's leaning into us more. And I'm like, that wasn't me. That's her body. God made her body to do a certain thing. That's all I did was remove the interference so that it can do that certain thing. So baby girl is up. She'll be crawling soon. Now, she'll be crawling soon. But she is up on, now she's up on those arms, and she's able to, and we're just going to keep doing the thing. Just keep adjusting her. No magic pills. I didn't give her anything. I didn't inject her with anything. I didn't send her to the orthopedist, or, you know, her body did what her body was supposed to do once we removed the interference, and that's it.
Okay. So you keep touching on things that I talk about. So one of the things I talk about in my coaching programs is in utero wounds. And often we just don't think about it, right? The baby can hear us, the baby can sense us, and they take on all of the things that the mother is going through and the environment. So the child hears the arguments, that feels the stress, they feel the anger, and you wonder why these kids are coming out angry, or they're coming out with attitudes or sassy. Like, you wonder all of these things, but it's literally in utero wounds. And by the same wise, if you're rejecting that child, that may be an unwanted pregnancy, they're still taking on all of those things that you're projecting. So people don't realize that. And here's one thing that I've said. I'm gonna say this politically correct. A lot of times that it's also rejection, right? So if you even if you've wanted a certain sex of baby and you treated it as that particular sex, and then you find out it's the opposite sex of whatever you were hoping for, that baby takes on that rejection.
Oh yeah.
And then it shows up in the
disappointment.
world. Yes, absolutely. Oh, yeah. So it's super important, not just in a normal sense of even chiropractic care, but it's super important just for the mental health of a child. Absolutely. That we are fully embraced in peace and love.
Absolutely. All the things.
Yeah, like all the things, because we just don't realize it. And I'll be honest in saying I didn't know that. I didn't know any of that until I started researching and going through my own healing journey and things. The arguments my son and his father had when I was pregnant, like my child took all of that on, and consequently my child has other issues, right? So I was angry a lot when I was pregnant, but it was, when you realize, it was like, ooh, right, I did this, and you did, not to say that you intentionally do things to your child, especially in that sense, but it just happens, and we don't coordinate any of those things. So but then
again, you have to also say, you said something that I caught. You said, I did this. You didn't do that. Your anger did that. And where you got that anger from wasn't necessarily your fault. So that's interesting. Like I talk to, when I talk to my patients, I'm all, hey, things come from places, right? And it's not always us, because your anger came from somewhere as well. Like you said, the conflict. And so it's not always, it's just recognizing, like you said, hey, his anger, I can see where it comes from. Like I look at my babies all the time, and I'm like, yeah, I remember that. Like, I remember that trauma. Yep, you're just mirroring my trauma. You're just a mirror in front of my face showing me my trauma. And unpacking it like you're doing with your podcast, and you're leading others to, that's the most valuable thing. I mean, it's all going to be, it's going to be there. We have generations, especially in our culture, generations of toxicity and
Absolutely.
trauma that we, the deal is to unpack it, deal with it, and move on. Yeah, we're going to have our kids that mirror little pieces of it sometimes, but moving on, right? And we're moving on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can't stay stuck there. So
Mm-mm.
this was cool just to see how what I do and what you do are like so they're
Intertwined.
parallel, yeah, and
They
intertwined. So
really are.
that's so really cool. Because the same way you have the ability to come out of traumas mentally, physically, and begin to go on a healing journey, you can still
Mm-hmm.
coincide and go on the same path with the body by seeking a
Absolutely.
chiropractor to try to release the trauma, because what happens is that trauma lodges in your spine, it lodges in your amygdala, it lodges in your
Yes. No, you're
hippocampus,
right.
it lodges in your
Yeah.
thyroid, like it lodges in your prefrontal cortex, like all of
Yep.
that. So when you
Mm-hmm.
go to a chiropractor like Dr. Francis, well, we call her Melita, so I'm just gonna say Melita because I'm gonna slip up and just go ahead and say Melita anyway. So when we
Yes.
talk about that, like she has the ability to help release it in that aspect from the from the body. So that's pretty cool. So now that y'all know, chiropractic is a real thing.
It is a real thing, and
All of
it is
these
a real thing, and then it's not a complicated thing. People make it, they call, there's that famous word that's associated with it. But if you understand the science, like I said, I was a scientist first. So when you understand the science behind it, you understand it's just as black as white as that circuit breaker. You understand it, yeah, you understand it. People
and I
say,
think that's
oh,
the best analogy that I've heard. Like I've never heard that analogy, so I like that because it makes it really practical. It makes it
it
real
really
practical.
is.
So that's cool. Um, yeah, I think we just gonna end this episode right here because she has more to tell us, but you're gonna have to come back to the next episode just to find out what it is.
You gotta come back. You gotta come back. I told you I can do this all day.
I think that's what we're gonna have to do. So tell everybody again where they can find you, social media, where they can find your practice. And she just literally did her grand opening. So
Yes.
congratulations
June
on your
16th.
grand
Yes.
opening.
And we have not been empty one day since. We have not had a break one day. We have been going. We've been going, going, going. So you
That's
can find us, Living Water Chiropractic, in the small town / big town of Blythewood, South Carolina. We're located at 420 McNulty Road, and that's Suite G. You'll see the sign. Come see us. We're on Facebook. We're getting our social media pumping. Right now, we're loading all those miracles so that the world can see, because everybody needs to know about this thing called chiropractic.
absolutely.
And what it truly is, not what you see on, don't look at the other things that you see on social media. I'm not bending you into a pretzel or anything like that. But come on and see us. The website is livingwaterchiroblythewood.com, and that is it.
All right.
Get
So
everybody.
give us one last thing that you want everybody to walk away with in regards to chiropractic care.
If I can give you one thing, I would say that you were wonderfully and intricately and just amazingly made. There's nothing wrong, only things that interfere with that handiwork. And that's all we do, is remove the interference so that all of that glory that the Lord made you in can just shine through. And that's why I say chiropractic is just you living your best life, because it truly is you living your God-given best life with no interferences. So stay blessed, everybody. Stay healthy, stay well, stay uninterfered.
I like that. Thank you, Dr. Francis, for coming on. Hey, again, follow and like this podcast. This has been another episode of Broken Graciously, where we challenge the culture of brokenness holistically with candid conversations, transparency, and practical tips. See you on the next episode.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Broken Graciously podcast. Stay tuned for weekly episodes. Follow me on IG at Tanisha B. Lester and the number 1. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Blessings.